Good afternoon and welcome to Carnation Crafts TV. We are live in the Carnation Crafts studio for the second time today. We are going to have a look at the much awaited, the much anticipated look at old and new. This was a Crafters Select a couple of weeks ago. Just to explain to you all, normally when we have a Crafters Select, we will do a demo when it's released. And it was very unusual for us to not be able to do that. But I was unfortunately in Yorkshire, and then I have been in hospital. So it got pushed back, nothing to do with Carnation, all to do with me. I apologise massively. And so now we're rectifying that situation. So this isn't really about sales. We know that most of you have already got this, but many of you wanted to just have a look at some inspiration, see about putting it together, how it works, that sort of thing. So we're just going to do a quick couple of run-throughs for you. It won't be as long as this morning's show, which was a full composition piece. This is really just looking at the dies and how it's cut, how it comes together. Hey, Pam Simpson, are you okay, lovely? And just to see what it's all about. So my personal apologies for not bringing this demo to you sooner. Like I say, that is entirely my fault. So apologies also to Carnation. Hey, Karen, how you doing? So the first thing I just want to say is you can still get this Crafters Select if you're watching it and you think, oh, this is something that I would like to have in my collection. Then it is on the Carnation Crafts website. It's under the number 220911. It's called Old and New, and it's really sweet. It's a lovely Crafters Select. It's something completely different to what they bring out normally. So it's got a little phone box on it, which is gorgeous. And it's also got a mobile phone, so old and new. Those two things can be combined or they can work independently, depending on what you're wanting to make. It's a stonking great big selection of dies, and it's just got everything we need for those kind of modern elements and for those more kind of traditional pieces that we could consider very British, I think, with that red phone box. Ironically, of course, I come from East Yorkshire. This is a very random little bit of information for you all here. In East Yorkshire, we don't have red phone boxes. We have white phone boxes. So it's always an exciting thing for me when I see red phone boxes, because we don't have them. We have white phone boxes because we don't have BT. In your East Yorkshire, we only have Casey, so we've never had red phone boxes. It's all very exciting for me. Anyway, that was a bit of information none of you needed. So let's have a look at some samples. I've got a couple of pieces here, and then we're just going to have a look at the dies. So this is a first look. So this is working on a much bigger base. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think this is probably an 8x10. And good morning, Sue. Good morning, good afternoon, should I say. Afternoon, Jacqueline. Good afternoon, Paula. So we have got here a mix of the two, and I think this is the really lovely way of working with things. You're definitely of an age when you've used both of these. Pam, I was a red in South Yorkshire. Yeah, it's just East Yorkshire. It's Hull and Beverley predominantly, where we can't get BT. You can only get Kingston Communications. So it's predominantly, I think, just Hull and Beverley, and there are no red phone boxes, just white ones. So we've got the little sentiment that comes with this, the happy birthday. Then you've got your red phone box, you've got your mobile phone, and obviously this has been mixed in with alternative dies from different collections, which we very much encourage you to do, to bring in those pieces and elements that we see from collections we've used in the past. And that's a way of building up and using, I always say it's not collections, it's bolt-ons, and this is what's been used. So you can see the little piece at the back, the vignette, which has got the telephone on there. And that's obviously a vignette that comes in the same shape as the telephone box. So we cut it in the same way with the same dies, and it gives us a background to the piece that we're using. And then we've obviously got this little mobile phone piece tucked on the inside. And I quite like the way that they play with each other. There's a nice element of having both of them together. I love big cards. I just think they're just really fun, and there's something about them. So I'm all for this card. Hello, Sandra, are you okay? And we go from there, and we've got the mini. So this is the phone box on its own, and this is predominantly what I'll be looking at in demo today. Mandy says good afternoon, Carla and Miss Taz. She says hello in the corner. She's been very well behaved, and obviously that's your inside panel, and this is where the vignette that I was talking about. It cuts separately. It's the same thing. It's got the same visual or the same outside and then a different inside. So we've got the different pieces here. Hello, Mandy. Are you okay? So all the different aspects that you've got. And then the mobile phone, which I think is super pretty and upside down, is just gorgeous. Bring in all of your elements from your different dies. Lindsay Atherton, who is one of our lovely and very talented DT members, says, "Hi Carla, you may not know it, but you're my craft buddy this afternoon." Well, that's lovely, Lindsay. We're working together. So Lindsay and I already work together because she is Carnation DT and super talented at that. Hello, Julie. Are you okay? And I think I've got everybody. If I have missed anybody, I do apologise. Great to have your company. I know loads of you have been wanting this demo for ages. I feel terrible. It is my fault. I'm also going to tell you as well, we did have boards for these. We do have boards for these. Carnation made me boards for these. Do I have them here? No. Have I lost them? Yes. I've been moving house, sort of. I don't know where anything, I don't even know where my cats are at this stage. I don't know where the things are. I've lost the boards. I messaged Mark and Nick last night and I was just like, I can't find them. I'm so sorry. Sorry, my fault. So anyway, we've got the mobile phone one here. What the mobile phone one has is loads of backgrounds. Hey, Michelle. So again, we get to use this sentiment. We've got the backgrounds for the phones. Now, these can be used as the front or the back of the card. And now what I love to see with these, because on the inside, we've got these bits which we type on. Can't believe it's your big day. You're actually getting quite old. That's what Miss Taz says to me all the time. What time is the party? Cheeky, the party starts at 7. Great way of doing a card invitation. We've got all the elements that we know from our mobile phones, all the extra elements here, mats and layers as well, so we can build and we can get everything together as you would expect. And then you can use your backing for your phone with the camera attachment that we would see on a normal mobile. So you've got this lovely aspect that we would see, wouldn't we, on a normal phone case, that little part that we've got, you know, that brings everything together. So great way of pulling it all in. Love the idea of having the very old with the very new. And I actually really love the idea of combining the two. Now, for me, I would love to do a great big card with both of them sitting on, possibly putting the backs together to make a bespoke piece so the card opens, you know, at the same time. It would be lovely as a stepper card, wouldn't it? So if we made a stepper card background, so the stepper itself would take the length here and then sort of tuck in and have these elements coming from, would be super cute as well. Lots of ways that we can play with this, using them independently or using them together, and I just think it's a nice element to have. One of Carnation's strength has always been bringing us components, and I talk about this a lot. I know they bring us collections, and obviously we bring them out as collections, but their strength lies in the elements that we get within the collections, because those things are the things that we use all the way through our crafting. Having a phone box, having a mobile phone, we're never going to know when we need to use those. Now, the difference between them, I think, for me personally as a crafter, the mobile phone I could give to somebody who's much younger as a card, and it would have meaning to them. Don't laugh, Miss Taz. She constantly, because she's so young, it's her birthday tomorrow and she's still very young. And I'm very old, and so she finds it hilarious that she has to look after me and keeps asking Mark and Nick for a pay rise because she's essentially my carer. But I could happily give something like that to Taz and it would have meaning to her. I would be unlikely to give the mobile phone necessarily to my mum, but I would love to give the phone box to my mum because she would love it. It's very traditional. It's got all of that loveliness about it. So you've got both of those elements there. Now, the last card that I want to show you, the last sample that I want to show you, and I've saved it to last because I think it's extraordinary. Obviously done by Janine. Of course it's done by Janine. She's amazing, isn't she? So it's this one here. You've got the two attached together. However, if I lift, what we've actually got is a phone box. Now inside, I'm just going to show you it from the front and try and get it so it's not glaring. So you've got the bouquet of flowers inside, and then the little message inside says, "Only ever a phone call away." That's a really powerful little message, isn't it? Where it just says it there. Can you see where my finger is? It just says it inside that phone box. Carol says, "Happy birthday for tomorrow, Miss Taz." She's so excited about her birthday. She's been telling me about it for 11 months. So if I lift this up, can you see where we've got this folding panel on the inside with 3 slots going across and the slots that come out that allow it to swing to the side? These are really easy to make. What I'll say to you is I'm just going to move my finger so it sort of as such sits on top. You see where you've got the line going across here and the 2 lines coming down. What we do on the lines that go across, we create a tab that sits. And you place those tabs, you place them usually behind, and they fold. Now what I generally do with these, or often do, is I'll have a tab that folds back that way and a tab that folds forward this way, so that when I fold the card, that mechanism inside, can you see how that's now folding together? Can you see? They just spring shut, and you can create as many layers as you want with that. Really easy to make yourself out of card. Super simple. I can see that, oh, Miss Janine has done the tabs the same way I do, one forward, one back. It just makes it easier when they swing, that they swing shut. So for any of you want to attempt this at home, absolutely feel free. Really easy to make, it's not difficult. I know it looks daunting, it's not. You want to make the mechanism probably first by measuring out the distance between the foam boxes, because you don't want it to be as wide as those foam boxes. So if the foam box, for instance, was, I'm making this up by the way, I don't know the actual measurements, if it was say 3.5, 4 inches, say it's 4 inches long, you're going to make that inside panel, this bit, 3 inches long. Take an inch off, because you need to allow it to have that freedom to move. And then you would put each row about an inch apart, and it would just allow you to get that mechanism working, and you would allow it to close and open for postage. So when it's in postage, it is that size. What Janine's done then is added these elements, these florals that you can see. So the back is there, and those have been tucked on the front, just to give it that extra element at that side. So when it lays flat as such, you're seeing it as if it's just poking over the top. You've got your bouquets made in that tab on the inside and there. It's actually a very simple card. It looks so ridiculously impressive, doesn't it? But it is a really simple card. Now, how do we get all 4 of those foam boxes to sit together? Well, Carnation gave us that by giving us tabs. What I mean by tabs is when I take the outer die, which is your base card, and it sits and it looks like that, we have these tabs on the side. Now they're going to be on the right hand side of the card because the die is going to flip over when we're cutting it, and you can literally use those tabs and just attach each one. So you'd have one attached here, one attached here, and one attached here, one at the back. So easy. Julie says, can we have to measure? Do you mean can we have measurements, Julie? For the foam box is at its widest point, I'll do it from the base card, at its widest point you're looking at 10.5 centimetres. In length you are looking at 21 centimetres, so it's quite tall. It's very dramatic, isn't it? It's a really gorgeous die. And then you have all your mats and layers. So you've got your mats here and your layers, and then you've got your actual vignette that just sit on top of each other. So you can really go to town with these. The gold is gorgeous against the red. Good morning, Serenity. Are you okay? So yeah, just a lovely, simple mechanism. Works beautifully. Janine has put the sides of her mechanism. She's also added that vignette detail there, so it almost looks like a part of that bouquet, and the same on the other side as well. So no aspect of this is left naked with the mechanism showing, other than the very top, which people wouldn't be looking at, would they? Because if we're looking at it from a front point of view, from the sort of front angle, what you would see, can I borrow your front facer, Miss Taz? There you go. What you would see is that message and the bouquet inside, and it just sits perfectly. Isn't that so pretty? Really gorgeous way of playing with this, and it goes to demonstrate. So if I'm just go back to the finished samples that we were looking at, just ignore the mobile phone one for a second, bring in that one, and then bring in that one, the same die, made up in 3 different ways. And that's the power of Carnation dies, is that we'd never play with it just in it doesn't give us one option. Carnation always try and make sure that we've got numerous ways of playing with the same thing. So if you were to go onto Carnation Crafts website and go to the inspiration page and choose any collection, you'll see masses of different ways that the DT team have played with the dies, because there's loads of different ways of playing with it. So that's your samples. I'm going to be fairly brief running through what we're doing. I'm going to start with the mobile phone one just to explain to you in a little bit more detail. Hey Ruth, are you okay? Late to the party but catch you. You haven't really missed upon anything at the moment, Ruth, other than the code number if you do want to buy this, just to let you know, from the Carnation Crafts website, is 220911. It's at a cost today of $34.99. If you've got the newsletter, then you'll get 10% discount across the whole of the site, so you would get 10% off that as well, so make sure you use that. It is under £50, so there will be a 2.95p and P on it as well. But today's not really about selling it. The sales have already been on for this. I missed demo time because I was not here. So what I'm going to look at first, she says, if she can find a bits and bats, is the mobile phone. Now, just to explain to you, because we had such a long show this morning and because we're getting 2 done today, I'm going to be fairly brief on these. I'm not making huge demos. More to the point with the mobile phone, I'm just going to look at how we play with the aspects of making backs and fronts of cards, and then for the phone box I'll do a full demo for you. Ruth says, I'd love a vignette to make it a Doctor Who box. That would be cool. And also got it already and made my dad's birthday card from both. Love it. Ruth, have you put that in the Carnation Crafters Facebook group? Always cool to see. Always cool to see. So yeah, well, hopefully Carnation will listen. We'll get another colourway for the phone box, and you can choose what you're doing with it. So the elements that we get with the mobile phone, there's loads of them. I'm just going to place them all down so you can see the different elements. I've got all different layers with various bits coming in here. Get rid of my base cards and my mats and layers, and just go through. I haven't got them all. I did print them all out. I don't know what I've done with the vignettes, but anyway. There's various different backings, but these are all the bits. These are the bits that we get, the dies that we get. And then you get different vignettes for your different backgrounds. Loads of them to choose from. So there's a green one. This one is my favourite. I love it. I think it's so pretty. We've got the front of the phone, and then we've got this one. And I think the reason I chose that one more specifically to show on air is because it's great for masculine cards, isn't it? That phone case that's got that masculine card, pop the camera on. I don't actually know which way a phone camera goes. Let's pretend it's that way and that I do know what I'm doing. So you've got that aspect there. As Miss Taz is showing me, I've got that the wrong way round. Wait, is that better? There you go. Apparently it looks like that. So yes, it's got sort of that very masculine edge to it. So for those younger males in our life, it's a great way of sending a card to them, that it fits in with what they kind of do and what they know. I mean, most people live with a phone in their hand, maybe except with the exception of me, because I'm not really bothered by a phone. But certainly the youth seem to sit with phones in their hand all the time. I say the youth because Miss Taz is currently sat with a phone in her hand. It's what they do. It's a thing, isn't it? Paula says, I made my first attempt at the mobile phone as a get well card. It's so brilliant for all of those, isn't it? Because of those personalizations on the messages that we can type, and I love that. But it's always about just crafting in a way that allows us to know that no matter who we're sending it to, be it male, female, non-gender specific, be it young, be it older, be it mid-range, that we've got something for everybody, and that's important. Certainly for me it is anyway, and I love playing with modern and with traditional. So all I really want to show you with the mobile phone is just a really quick look. I'm not going to get too far into it, but for me, I love the idea of having a back and a front of it, and because we've got mirrored vignettes, we can do that. Now, I won't bother with this so much at the minute. I'll just use it as, we know the backs and fronts of cards. I'm trying to go relatively quick so I don't keep you too long. If I'm doing the back of my card, I am obviously going to have it the other way round. So it would be this way with this facing. Hey, I'll get there in a minute. And the reason I'm not flipping this is because I've got foam tape on it. So if I was making this as the front of my, I'm going to go round and round in circles here. There you go. Okay, so if I was doing this in this, I love that so much. Isn't that so fresh and pretty? I actually would like a phone case made out of that. If I place this on, I just think that's so ace. There's something really striking about it. Pam says, not me, I haven't got one. I don't blame you for not having one. I would get rid of mine in a heartbeat if I could. I don't like them. But there you go. So we've got all of this element here. Now, for me, if I'm playing with this, the first thing that I'm going to do, and we talked about this a lot this morning, but the first thing that I'm going to do with this is raise the cover up. I would also use mats and layers as well. Now, what I would say to you is I've got them cut in gold, and it's because I've got the demo for the front of the card, not the back of the card. But to place it up, I would put that on foam tape and raise it, which I will do in a second. And I would have that gold aspect there. Obviously, you can use any colours. White on white would look amazing with this at the back, just to raise. And then that gold. But doesn't that gold lend itself really well to those colours there? Now from there, I would be inclined to put florals on it or a big sentiment topper over the edge of that if I was just going to make the back of the card. Now obviously I would want to make the front of the card, so I wouldn't just be doing it that way, but I just want to show you the different elements that come in with this and why. Now the main thing that I'm going to work on today is the front of the card, because we've got all of these elements that work and how they would come together. But if I swap this out and I change it, and I bring in the masculine element. Dramatic, isn't it, the masculine one? Big sentiment over the front. That happy birthday that comes with it. All of those things that we can bring to bring the dynamic shape. Now for me, if I'm making a card with this, I'm most likely to put that together, put the two together, turn it over, and work with my vignettes to do the front of the card. So what I want to explain to you, and I'm going to explain it badly because I'm a terrible human. If I want to make a card of this, just say I've put this together and this is the back of my card. Okay, I realise my liner tape's on the other, but say that that's the back. And I turn it over. Now obviously I would use the other side of the cards. I realise this, I'm just explaining. I would love to then use this as the front of my card. Now I've got it backwards in the way I'm showing you, because obviously my sides are different, but because we have mirrored vignettes, we can change them. Now obviously I would do it the opposite way around, but just to show, because we've got mirrored vignettes, we can have the front and the back of the card. And I think that's ace, because the middle is going to be blank, but both sides of my card are going to have a decoration on it. Normally we leave the back of a card blank, but the fact that it is a mobile phone and we can have that front and back. So working on the theory of this one, if we had that as the front of the card opens on the inside and then the back of the card. So the whole thing is the card, the whole thing. We're working with all of the space that we've got. We can do the middle. I love the fact that this one has got both the front panel done. We've used the middle as our kind of writing, what we're putting to somebody, and then we have the back. Isn't it clever? Everything we need, so it's like a phone case. So that's how I would work with it. Now the front of the card, what I wanted to show you more than anything, I'll just get rid of all of these bits, bring this one in, and put that there, okay? So we've got that sort of lovely blank space to work with. If this was the front of my card, which is how a phone would actually look, so if I place mine next to it, we've got it so it looks that way, doesn't it? And then if I turn that round, I've obviously got the back of my phone there with the camera as well. So if we're going by the theory that we're going to do it as something that's sort of more realistic, I suppose, I would be using this here. I've got my little elements. Now I can't remember where these go on an actual phone, so I'll just put mine on so I can see. The colour's starting to come in. It's starting to look cute. And then we can just play. And there's different pieces that we've got. We've got the little speech bubbles. And again, I would be raising these on foam tape. Should we raise some, Miss Towers? Should we raise some on some foam tape? Let's play. I don't want to keep you too long because I know I kept you all for a long time this morning and I'm sure you're all sick of hearing from me. Just 1 second. Raising up. So we're starting to breathe with it. It's starting to have a little bit more to it. Let me pick this up. Now I can put this down and place it there. I've got my other front and backs here. Okay, all my different aspects, but let's work with the black. I'm going to go with a masculine. We don't do many demonstrations on masculine cards, so I'm playing with that for now. So I'll just put a little bit of foam on here just so everything's not slipping. And then we're going to play with the other aspects too. One on there, one on the other end. Take off these bits. Oh. And just place it down. Lifting. We've just got that lift. Did I stick that one? No. Now I'm going to keep this one at the top, but the whole point of this is you would play with your composition first. So I wouldn't necessarily have this at the top. I just want to show you the elements. Now the reason that I would raise these on foam tape as opposed to having them flat, and it is personal choice, but the reason that I would do that is because for me, because I'm able to type on these and put what I need to put on them so that that message is clear, that message is the thing that I want the recipient to see the most. So if it's just popping forward, it's the most prominent aspect on that card. So it's about that showstopper element. And when we're saying showstopper in this, what we're talking about is your central stage. What do I want the recipient to see? What's the thing that I want them to see the most? And it's the message, isn't it? It's the thing that I'm typing to them. And so that's why I'd raise it on foam tape. So it's just that kind of, there's the difference. There's their eye's going to go straight to it and it's getting that message across. So the other aspects that we've got here are your wee phone. Now, Miss Taz, help me out. It's that way, isn't it? Oh, the youth.
My phone can't be upside down.
Again, still doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to go in with some foam tape here. I was saying the other day that I really miss being young. But I'm going to tell you something. I think I don't. I think I don't miss being young. It's very complicated being young these days. I think I'm quite glad that I'm old at this stage. So I'm just going to place that down.
In what way?
In what way what? That it's very complicated being old. I find being old very hard.
Being young in this kind of...
Oh, I wouldn't want to be young now.
What are we talking
For anyone at home who's my age or above, are you not just really chuffed that everything you ever did wrong in your youth is not on social media? I would not. I would not want to have the pressure of social media being young. It's hard enough being old and having it. Social media, just a weird world, isn't it? I'm very glad the things that I did in my youth were not caught on camera, let's put it that way. Right. I'm just going to take these. I'll take this one because it's already got those pokies pulled out. And I'm just going to place these on. So I've got my little battery. Look at these. Really sweet, isn't it? Starts to come together, all of those elements and its detail. That's where Carnation really fly, I think, is in the little details that Nick thinks about in his head when he's putting all of those elements together, that we have all of those little aspects. Now, the last thing that I would do, if I was making this card myself, one of the speech mark bubbles is big. And that would be the one that would have the main message on for me. So I might have a little message there, like, say, like I was to put, hey, Miss Taz, and then on here I would have a massive happy birthday. And then the bottom one, love Carla, something along those lines. The biggest message, the most prominent thing that I wanted to say, I would have in the middle piece on the larger speech bubble, because that's the one that is going to be the biggest message. Now, because of that, what I would be inclined to then do is where I've got 3mm foam tape there and I've raised it, I'm going to put 5mm on this one. I want it even bigger. I want that one to be the one that pops out the most because it's the most dynamic message that I'm giving at that point, or it's the most poignant message, I suppose, that I'm giving. So I'm going to raise that up even more. I'll just pop that on here. take this off, match it up. I think my speech marks might actually supposed to be with the speech mark at the bottom. I don't know the things. I just find it complicated. Now, the other aspects that we've got are the little green boxes. Now I could place that in the middle, type something on there. That really makes it stick out. And we would have all of those elements coming together. Now, because I've got those stuck down, listen, I'm just going to make my whole life easier here. Just bear with. Let's do a very quick cut in onto these, just so that I can get it stuck down so you can see what I'm working with. It's already done. She says, do you know? Linda says, forgot about the Facebook Live, was having a play. Which collection were you playing with, Linda? Place that down there. Just let me make sure I've got those straight. This is why we butt it up against something, because then you know you're not staying where you should be. Same again on this. I'm just making sure I've got it laid flat so you can see what I'm working with. That lift and rise on that to give it that chunky edge and that shadow play round. And then you can see I'm working fast on these guys. I'm so sorry, I have taken up so much of your day today. Let me get my pokey. Half an inch towards your body. Shuffle and just push in. That gives me my card base there. That's all of that made. Yes, Miss Towns, you have your hand up.
Chaz has asked, is it possible to use Adobe PDF to type messages on these?
It should be. I don't want to say categorically yes because I haven't tried. Yeah, Adobe. I use Adobe Reader. It's the same thing, isn't it? Adobe, I would have thought. And it'll come up with a little box that you can type in when you click into it. And it should highlight in a blue colour and then you click on it on there. Now, because we've got mirrored vignettes, when I cut this die, because of the way that the die is cut, that is front facing. That is the front of my card. Linda's playing with Helder Noah Hearts. Oh, I'm chuffed for you, Linda. But because it's a mirrored vignette, I can turn it upside down with no difference and just place that as my base. Do you see how I've now got the front and the back panel of that? And that works just in tandem with each other. Or I could do another front face one and have more messages on there. It just depends on how you want it to be. Now, because I'm working in the masculine sense, I'm going to use the darker one to mix in with the other that I've got. I would be more inclined to use sort of a matte as well. Now this is the Miri card, but obviously it's cut for a front facing, so I can use it in the cream colour on the back, and that's what I'll do. The reason that I'm using it, and I don't have to use it, but I want to cover that score line because I don't like it, it doesn't look pretty. Now if you're unsure and you don't want to use a matte and layer, and we don't always, cut that twice. Lay it straight, just lay it straight on it and use finger lift tape on it, or use glue. Now what I'll say about that is when you're doing it, if you're doing it on the back piece and you've got that score line is essentially a mechanism, and what we don't want to do is cover our mechanism up. So what I'm inclined to do when I'm doing it that way is to just miss that score line with my red liner. Or with finger lift, depending on what you're putting on the back. It doesn't matter what you're sticking them down with. I will say wet glue, not your best friend when you're putting mats and layers down. I would always try and avoid mats and wet glue when I'm doing mats and layers, simply because you want that strength, that adhesion to sit through. But it is obviously your choice. Now I'm going to get myself into a pickle now. So I'm just going to make sure I've got those straight together. She says, this is why we use the tab formation, and I've covered that mechanism. Okay, so it's sat there. I've still got my card base. It's still working in exactly the same way, but I've covered my mechanism. By avoiding that hinge, it's still not hinging here, and I've still got that flat base, even though it's open. I don't have that score line going across, so it helps in that way. Then I would be inclined to do my mats and layers. So I'm going to work with this backwards. Obviously, I probably wouldn't use gold. I'd just use some normal card, but let's work with what we've got in front of us, because I wasn't actually going to demo this as a card. I was just going to show you the elements and then work with the other, but we're going to go quick. She says, go really quick if I can just get the liner tape off my foam. But let's just look at it finished. Straight on the top. Now, it's just a case of making sure you use the right side of the vignette to put your foam tape on, or your tape on, so that you're getting all of your edges correct. So just keep an eye on these, work backwards from yourself. So I know what I need on this side. So pop those down. This foam tape is ridiculous. I don't know what they've done to change the recipe for it, but it's very different to how it used to be, and it's driving me mad. It's 10 times stickier. It's become like, you know those peanuts? They call them peanuts, don't they? Packaging peanuts. And it's like a really light air foam. That's what this has now become like, and I don't like it as much. I'm grumbling. I'll place that there. So this is now the back of my card. So I've now got the choice of playing with two. Now for the back of my card, I don't want any lift or rise. So I wouldn't use foam tape for any of the elements that sit on it. And I'm only going to place the camera on it so you can see it. But I wouldn't use any rise on these. I would want it to lay flat. And the way I guarantee that obviously is by using wet glue. So I'm just going to place some wet glue, which is my front there, just on the panel and just in the middle, because I don't want it squodging outside the edges. That way, Miss Taz?
Yeah, that way.
And I'm just going to place it into that corner. Just about straight there. So this is obviously a very simple demonstration before I get onto the main phone box. But I just wanted to show you as a card. I love, love, love the idea of having a front and a back to my card, and then a space in the middle for me to put notes in, to put anything else in. Obviously that's as it normally would be, but I've got, how cute it is. I've got my front and I've got the back. Now obviously yours won't be quite as higgledy-piggledy. I had no intention of sticking anything down, but here we are. And that's sort of how that formation comes. Look for your messages, add florals in there, add anything, you know, different elements from different collections to kind of pretty it if that's what you choose to do. For me, if I was making a card for a masculine, obviously I would go with the darker colours. If I was making the card for a feminine, I would use the sort of more feminine colours, obviously. And so with the feminine colours, it's often easier to lend itself to florals. With the masculine colours, there's plenty within other Carnation collections that we can add those elements to as well. So let's have a look at this foam box. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about, I'm not going to cut it because I've got it already cut, but what I wanted to talk to you about is how the die formation works with these. Because one of the questions we do get asked a lot, because I don't tend to cut on air, because I do tend to cut every single die cutting machine in the universe, but I did cut this morning, so if you want to see it, it did happen. Let's have a look at how these form. Your base card, your outer layer, and this would be cut on a 350 GSM smooth card. You would literally just place this down. Now, for those of you who are brand new to die cutting, never cut a die in your life, don't know what a die is a piece of metal that has got a ridge all the way around it. We use a machine that compresses that metal into a piece of paper below it, and it cuts straight through it, so we get that shape. I know most of you at home know that, some of you don't. There is a very fine little ridge that goes along there. Now what that means is that there is a front and a back to every die. Can we use both edges? Yes. If you were to use the piece with the cutting edge, which is here, that's going to cut straight through the paper. Often, if we use the other side of the die, what it actually does is emboss the shape on. So we can have both ways. It doesn't always work, but a lot of the times it does work. And it's a really great way of getting double for your money with your dies, because you can use them as embossers. Now, what we do when we've got a piece like this is the outer edge. So what I will do is just chuck those out of the way and just bring this over. Oh, Miss Taz, I don't know if I'm going to fall off my chair, if I'm going to destroy the set, but one thing or another's about to happen. So I've got 350 GSM here. If I'm cutting this, the first thing I'm always going to try and do is, can I fit it along widthways? If it fits that way, I will always do it because I want to save my paper. Saving paper is always a great thing. I know that I'm probably just going to miss the edge on here and I'm not going to risk it for a biscuit. If I was going to risk it, I'd put a little bit of tape here just to hold it in place so I know it's not going to move. I think the very tip of that might go off the edge of the paper. I could probably manage it, but rather than struggling, I'd be inclined then to put it right at the bottom with that cutting edge facing in, right to the edge, pop a bit of tape on, chuck it through, okay? And I know then that I can use the rest of that paper for something else. I'm probably not going to fit two on, I might do, and if I can, that's great, but it just means I'm not wasting paper. I don't like wasting it. I'm going to cut that twice. If I'm just making a normal card, I'm going to cut it twice because I need it back and a front of my card. If I'm doing the one that Janine did, where it's the full phone box that's in that formation, then I'm going to cut 4 of those. So it's just being aware of what you're making before you start. Often a great thing to do is just cut out 10 or 20 of them, sit them in bags, and they've got them whenever you want to go to them. So that's your alternative. That's what your outside die is for. That's your biggest one. We use it as the base card. Then we've got other dies that come in with this collection as well, which I put all my stuff on. So we get 2 that look identical, but one is bigger than the other. So if I just lay them over, you'll see they just fit snugly inside each other, almost like a nested die. Now the outside one is for your first mat and the inside one is for your layer. So what you're thinking all the time is, which colour do I want where? If I've got my base card laid down and I want to put a mat on top of it, so the first colour that I'm going to lay down, it has to be done with the bigger die. It's really easy to get confused when you're making them and to do the colours possibly the wrong way round. Now that's not necessarily wrong, it changes the way the card looks. Your mats and layers are visually important, so try and work backwards from what you're doing. Make sure that your smallest die is used for your top layer. That top layer is going to affect how your main vignette looks on top of it. So if you use a very dark colour and then you put a very dark colour on top of it, you might lose something there. So often your top layer is going to be your lightest colour. And that's why when Carnation Crafts bring you perfect papers, they will give you 6 colours and you will have a darker and a lighter shade of a colour, then a darker and a lighter, then a darker and a lighter. And it's so that your mats and layers are perfect, and often we use the lightest one at the top. Not always, but often. So they cut those. Then we come in with these dies, and this is where our choices start when we're crafting. I'm just going to get rid of these bits so you can see where we're going. So this die is your telephone box. When we look at a die, it has lots of little lines on it, and those lines are obviously what gets embossed into here. And we can see that we've got lines going across the telephone box as they are there, and they will match exactly. When you place this down, a question we get asked a lot is, my die doesn't fit my vignette. The first thing to look at, is it because your vignette's too big? So if I look down at this, my vignette is too big for my die. There's a massive edge. It's just too big. Well, that's there for a reason, and it's there on purpose because we have to have a bleed line. And the reason we have a bleed line is just in case, if this was exact, absolutely exact to the millimetre, and I had it a millimetre over, I'm going to get a little white line down the side. So we're always accounting for that. So Nick gives us this really lovely, generous bleed line that allows us to make sure we're not getting anything off kilter. If your vignette is too small, if you've printed it out and your vignette is too small for your die, something's gone amiss with your printing. Because when they're designed at Carnation, not only are they designed to fit exactly, they're also then tested robustly, firstly by Carnation themselves, then by Janine on the head DT. Often I will also test them. We make sure that they fit, and that is a big process. Then the DT team get hold of them, and the DT make cards long before we ever launch. So each one of those DT members will test them as well. Then it goes to the public. So by the time you've got it at home, if your vignette is too small for your die, it's something that's happened in the printing process, because otherwise it would have been caught well before. If that's the case, when you go to print, make sure you're printing either at actual size is usually the best, at 100% is often an option you get. If you've done both of those things and it's still printing and it's too small, you need to maybe adjust your custom scale. Sometimes on my printer, if my custom scale has been altered because I've been working on a USB, and say for instance I've taken it down to 95%, even though my other aspect will say the radio button is on actual size, for some reason it prints smaller, and I think it's something to do with the printer thinking I'm still at 95%, and sometimes that happens. If it does, I just go in and change my custom scale back to 100%, even though I'm working on the radio button of actual size, and then it prints perfectly. Why? I don't know. It's technical, I've got no clue. I don't understand the things, but it does. So you've got to play with that aspect. If you have none of those buttons and you've only got 100% and it's still printing too small, try it at 101, 102. Sometimes that little tweak, it makes it perfect. All printers are different. We don't know. Nobody knows. It's a science. So that's the one that we're going to put on there. Now you've got options here. If I want to leave it and I want this to stay white, I want all my little window bits to stay exactly as they are, then I'm just going to use this one piece. And that's going to cut me out my main phone box. Now if I want to then go a step further, just let me show you, hold on. Because I did do all of this in prep last night so you can see what I mean. I'm going to show you it this way first. Can you see? So I've got no detail in. Now, if I left it exactly as it was and I'd cut that one out, I would still get this, but obviously I would have the red and white. Pam, perfect, yeah. Pam's saying is I have to make sure borderless is off for vignettes. So borderless on a printer, when you print a backing paper off, which I handily don't have in front of me, you'll have a white border all the way around the edge. Now, I have my printer set to borderless all the time and it still gives me a border. And that's because when something goes to print, it's meant to have that. So if you were to send a file to somebody, it would need that border around it. So everything deems by it. If you turn borderless off, you'll still get a border, but it's not... the printer's not actively trying to move your image to fit a border, if that makes sense. So turn borderless off. You don't need a border on there. So there you go. Right, we've got this here, and this cuts this. So this is your outside die. This is cutting onto here. I actually cut that from Miricard, so you can see it there, just to show you the different aspects that we can do. If I want my windows to be cut in, I need to use my central panel, which is there. And it cuts all my windows, so I just stick those together. Why do we have both options? Why did they bother? Why didn't we just have the windows in there in the first place? Well, that's because we've got another vignette that's exactly the same, that's got the photo of the phone inside it. And if I put that on top of that, it's going to cut holes in my photo of my phone. So that's why all your aspects are the way they are. So just to keep you kind of posted as to what that means, why we cut the way we cut, that's why. And that would just simply sit on top of there. You might tape them together if you were worried about them moving while they're going through the machine, and then it would cut everything as it is. So taking that from that point, how do we then make that up into an actual card base and card shape? Well, I've got all my little bits and bats, and I will put everything there, move all my pieces, and we will go through the process. So here we go. All of my bits and bats sitting there ready to go. The first thing that we need to look at is the outside of those cards and how they come together. So you can see I was playing with some of these last night. They've got the tabs on the side. This one hasn't. And that's simply because I cut them off. Okay? Because when I'm making the card, what I've just cut a snip mark here and a snip mark here, just to cut those tabs off, I only need one tab. I don't need tabs on both sides. And I'm going to work backwards. So I want my tabs to be on the inside of my card so that they're not showing. And I'm just going to use a little bit of glue on there as that aspect. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn my tabs as a little score mark, push them forward on all of them. And if it was me, I would be inclined to burnish those fairly heavily. Now, I would use red liner tape normally, but because we're short on time, I am just going to use wet glue. Please, at home, do use red liner. Just give yourself that bit of strength. But I'm just going to use a bit of wet just to place that through. And I'm actually, for once, putting plenty on. Keep that raised. Push it down onto your silicone mat if you've got one, or butt it up against something and get your edges together. Keep them raised until you know you're exact. Once you've got them exactly where you want them to be, then just push. Now my mechanism for my card is on the inside. I'm not seeing it from the outside. Placed over, she says, let your glue dry. This is why you don't use wet glue when you're doing it, by the way, folks. This is why we do as I say and not as I do. But we are going for speed, so that'll dry as I'm working. So you've got your main shape there. Now we start working with our mats and our layers. I've gone for the gold first. I love this so much. I'm so smitten by it. It's so pretty. Foam tape 3. We've got a central core which we don't use. It's not there with purpose for adhesion. It's there for support. So I'm just pulling those down. That gets left. I don't touch it. I'm not bothered by it. It's just a support mechanism for the center of my card. Put this up against something. Get it to where you need it to be, roughly central. And push, pull. And we've got that exactly where we want it. Same again with my layer. And I'm going for white because I want the glare. I just want the gold to be my star. And this will just cool the tone. Also helps because whenever I'm working with the Miri card or gold card, I always manage to get fingerprints all over it, and this covers that up quite nicely. Thank you very much. Now, we were talking about placing your dies on top. Why don't we have the little window? Well, it's because of this little chap here. If I'd cut the windows into it, all of those pieces would have disappeared. So we're leaving that where it is. We just get out the main section, and this is just going to sit on here, and I'm going to keep it flat. I don't want any height on that. I want it to be exactly as low as it is there. But the option for me to raise it is there if I do want it. Now, again, I'm going to use wet glue. I would be inclined more to use finger lift tape if I was doing this at home, just to let you know, but it is a choice. I'll put some little aspects around. You don't need much. Place it on. The impact of that, I think, is so strong just there with doing nothing else. Even if you don't have the front panel on it, I think that is just such a strong way of doing it. Linda says push and pull is a great tip. It's about getting it, because I have to do things that make my life easier, because I will just get everything skew if I don't see things in the way other people do, and things get, you know, so for me it's just a way of going, have I got it straight? Yes, push, pull, and I can kind of do it in a rush and get myself where I need to be. Now, when I was doing this, I cut some acetate with that foam box die and cut some little bits of that away, and it's just to give it a glass look on my window. What I've found when I'm cutting acetate with a die is that if I use cut tidy, it doesn't work. I don't know why. It doesn't work for acetate. So I always remove my cut tidy when I'm cutting acetate, and I use a piece of cardstock under it, and I just use cheap card. I don't use my Carnation stuff. I just use cheap card. And I put that on top, and it goes through the acetate and generally through the card as well. If I just do acetate on its own with no cardstock, it doesn't cut through. That's been my experience of it. So maybe that'll help you. I don't know. So going from there, just going to use a little bit of red liner. So I'll just use just a small amount on the bottom. If you're doing it this home, measure out where everything is and just make sure you've got all your bases covered. So let me just make sure I've got that the right way around. Oh, I did have there, look. So it sits at the bottom. I need to make sure I've got some red liner tape here. Under normal circumstances, I would also be putting red liner here and red liner here, but I'm probably not going to do that just for speed. But just to let you know at home, that is going to be something you probably should do. We've got 2 seconds to do it, mister. We've got 2 seconds. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Place this here. And one there. It just means it's secure, guys. It's just, I would prefer it to be secure.
That was a really fun journey to watch.
Did you like that, Miss Taz, where my brain just went on a little...
I'm not going to do it, but you should. I'm not going to, but you should.
I'm going to do it, because my brain says don't. Well, I wasn't going to stick anything on the mobile phone either. The whole point of that was just I was going to talk through it. My brain won't let me do the things.
But your body's telling you yes.
I just, yeah. Right, so I'm going to place that down. Try not to stick that in my wet glue, which I just have. You guys keep your acetate clean. Don't do what I do, which is just, you know. Anyway, right. Place it first at the bottom because I know I haven't got my red liner tape's there. I know I've got this free space to get myself placed where I need to be before I commit to any stick. Then I can take this and just kind of lay it. So just take your time with that process at home just to make sure you've got everything with you need it. It's not making huge amounts of difference, but it does give you that little glint where you can just see the light shining off it. I've got mine slightly skewed. I'm not too worried, but I would, if it was me at home and you've done that and you haven't got it quite straight, just cut those little edges off the side. I'm not bothered because I'm not sending this to anybody, although it is Miss Taz's birthday tomorrow and I haven't bought her a card, so she may well receive this one. Now, I'm just going to place that there. I'm not going to do anything else with that as far as sticking it down is concerned first, because I want to work out what I want to do with the outside. My brain really, really wants me to, I'm not going to, but my brain really wants me to put this on really high foam tape. And it wants me to put things inside. That's what my brain wants me to do, because I feel like if I lay that flat, I've wasted a really great opportunity to actually have something sitting inside that card. And I think that's probably what will end up happening. I'm just letting you all know that's probably what's going to end up happening. Because to me, if I can make it interactive, I'd love to. However, you're not all in my brain and I don't want you to force you to just see the way that I would craft. So I'm going to leave it flat for now. And then I'm probably going to have to do that at the end because my brain's going to make me. So I was looking at some vignettes last night from Nature in Motion because they were some of my favourites and I loves them. And so I am just going to play with these. Now I'm going to ball tool these out and use them as a play way. So I'm going to take this. What? Sorry, Taz.
That was the deal of the day yesterday.
What was Nature in Motion?
The flowers.
Oh, was it? Oh, no, did we discuss this yesterday? Oh, God, my brain.
Yesterday on Monday. I got my days confused.
Because I'm working with this floral on the inside. Look at that colour, isn't it gorgeous? Because I'm working with this floral, I'm going to use the bigger ball tool just on this one. So I'm just going to stem out. I'll be quick because I know that this is not part of the foam box, but I do want to just give it a nicer edge. So I'm just going to work that way. Then I'm going to use the smaller end. And the smaller end for these ones is about perfect. You can just see that size fits nicely on the inside. So working from the out and work towards the in. And the out towards the in. Now, I don't want it sitting in that dome. So again, as always, we've got the pit marks around the edge. So we're going to take that. We're just going to pull that forward and that forward, and that's going to allow it to sort of sit flat for those two edges and keep the floral in the center raised. So I'm just playing with it that way. With this exactly where it is, actually I'm going to take it off. What I'm going to do is take this off, work with it independently. Because I haven't stuck it down yet, I'm going to work with it independently, work out where I am first. I'm going to place it in a corner, because I think it's so pretty. Is that not just so striking? The colours are so, so beautiful. I'm going to work with my pin flare, if I can get it to come out. If not, we'll do it from straight from the tube. It's so hot in this studio that everything dries up, doesn't it, Taz? Including Taz. She starts to sort of shrivel and shrink as the hour goes forward. Now I've just placed it on the centre of that one, and that's because I want it to sit on this corner. If I take it and I start putting it on the other elements or put it forward, it's going to sit on my acetate, and I don't really want it to do that. Not that it'll damage anything, but if I choose that I've made a mistake, for instance, where I might be able to get rid of some pin flare off the cardboard here and scrape it away and cover it with something else, I'm never going to be able to do that with acetate. So I'm making sure that I only get the pin flare on the card underneath, and it's just going to save me any heartache at a later stage. I'll pop it about that angle because I want it to just flow off the card. And then I love this so much. This is one of my favourite things from Nature in Motion, and I loved it so much when they brought it out. Isn't that the cutest? Isn't that so pretty? I love the colours. I love the way it fans out. So I'm going to use this part of why I love doing the Crafters Select demos is that I get to bring in other aspects from different collections that are my favourites to work with. And that's a really lovely thing. I get to revisit. And I'll just angle that slightly and push, just to get that adhesion working. So sweet, right? Now I get to choose, and now I get to make decisions. If I place this flat, I could just put some tape there and I've finished the demo. I really want to lift it up. Everything in my brain is saying, lift it, lift it, lift it. Now, what I can do, if I wanted to, is have a double opener. So I could put some red liner tape here, and I could have it so it opens there as well, and have a little message in there. And I've got the main opening for the main card as well. Up to me which way I choose to play with that. But actually what I really want to do is raise it. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take some 2mm. And I'm going to go 5. I'm going to go 5. We're going 5, Miss Towers. So the first place I know that I have got plenty of room for that foam tape is at the top. If I cover the word telephone, I know I'm safe. Nothing's showing through my acetate. So that's my first point of safety. I also know that at the very bottom where this red line is, I'm also safe there. And I want it as low down as possible. So they're my first 2 points of reference when I'm trying to work out exactly where to put my foam tape without it showing through the acetate. So now when I lay that down, you can start to see how we're coming together. Now I always talk to you about supporting everything that we do. Yes, if that sticks, I can hope it will stay where it is, but can you see how it's sinking down the sides? I'm not getting the lift that I want. So I need some down these sides. I can't gauge where that's going to be as far as where my acetate is. So this is when I start working on the back of here. I know that I've got the hinge and the element there, so I can place them on. What I'm going to do, because I don't want to necessarily put foam tape on here and have it here and try and work the two together, because it's going to hurt my brain, instead I'm still going to work on these edges. I'm going to take my 5mm, use my scissors, and just skim down the centre with them. You need relatively sharp scissors when you're cutting through foam tape, and always use a pair of sticky scissors. You never use your paper scissors to cut anything that's sticky because it can ruin your blades. So I always have a pair that are just for sticky stuff. So I'm going to just take those, take this, place it down, that side element, and just make sure it's straight. Okay? That way I know I'm not interfering with the acetate. Now, I don't know whether or not Carnation have got acetate in stock, and I don't want to tell you categorically that they do. I do know that there are more than one occasion where they have sold it. So have a look if you're waiting to see about acetate. They do a really lovely thin acetate that's really nice to work with. So just check it out. Right, I'm just going to go with the last floral here, and I'm just going to pop a little floral on the inside. Now, I'd be probably more inclined to put a message in there, but we'll just go with a little floral. Work through the edges first, go to the inside, and just break those fibres. I love these flowers so much. I've always been so smitten with them. Miss Taz is putting her hand up. Yes, Miss Taz?
So there's acetate on the website, 30 sheets of A400 micron for $9.99.
Well, that's good. Did you all hear that? There is acetate on the website. Is it just under the title acetate, Taz?
Yeah, but sorry?
Is it just under the title acetate?
Yeah, it's an acetate. And you'll find cut tidy there as well.
Right. Oh, cut tidy as well. What I want to do and what I need to do is make sure that the flower shows. Otherwise, it's entirely pointless me having done it. So I'm going to place it just around about there, because once I stick this down, it's stuck. So we're making like a floral bouquet. We're getting like a shadow coming forward of that floral. The first thing I'm going to do here is eyeball it. Now I can't lean over it. I'm just going to be really rude and just pull this back a little bit so that I can just check it overhead to make sure I'm about as straight as I can be. I would normally be hovering right over this with my glasses and potentially a microscope and anything else I can hope to get straight. But when you're doing it on demo, I can't. But I've just got enough lift. See how pretty that is? That little reflection of the floral inside. And it's just building that little box. If you didn't want the floral on the inside, you can just lay finger lift tape down there, red liner tape, something along those lines, lay it flat. So you wouldn't need that lift. If you were laying it flat, you wouldn't even necessarily need the acetate. But when we're doing it as a box, like we have done where we've got that lift on the foam tape, and you don't have to have 5mm foam tape. Remember, you can stick several of the little foam square type things together to create that height as well. There's different ways of playing with that. So it does work whichever way you choose to do it. But having that little bit of depth to allow something on the inside is super, super pretty. So if I just stand that up for you from the front so you can see it front facing. See how cute that is with that little bit of acetate and that floral on the inside. Really sweet ways of playing with these. The Crafter Select to me are always some of the most special dies that Carnation bring out because they get so excited about them in the office mainly. And it's really sweet to see that they're just giddy as kippers because it's always something just a little bit different. It's like if you're always dressed in a work suit and you get to wear your pajamas. I think that's where Carnation are when they do the Crafters Select. They're used to doing the collections, and every now and again they get to just have a bit of giddy fun with the Crafters Select, and that's why they're always so cute and so special. They've brought us some incredible ones recently with the Halloween ones and the Magic Fireplace, which I think was just the most amazing thing they ever did. And then obviously we have these gorgeous foam boxes to play with as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope this demo helped. I know lots of you have been waiting for it. Again, my apologies. The code for the Crafters Select for the old and new is 220911. It's currently on the Carnation Crafts website, which is www.carnationcrafts.co.uk. The price is $34.99. If you have got the newsletter for Carnation, and if you want to, you can sign up for it on the website. If you have got that, it will have a code in it for this month for 10% across the whole of the website. That will include your acetate, I assume, and your papers and anything else that you might get from there as well. So everything will be on there. It's been really great to have your company today. Thank you so much for your patience with me, and I will be back with you Friday. What we were on with on Friday? Wonderful in White. And it's the first time I've played with Wonderful in White properly because I was away and Wheeler did it. So I will get to do Wheeler in White. Are we on at 10 o'clock? Am I making that up?
It's either 10 or 11.
We're on in the morning.
10 or 11, definitely.
Carnation Crafts page on Facebook will tell you exactly when we're on. So Lindsay after says, see you later, Craft Bud. See you later, Craft Buddy. Right, have a really good afternoon and a really lovely tomorrow. And I will see you on Friday. Take care till then. Bye.